The Uptown People's Law Center is suing the Illinois Department of Corrections over their use of solitary confinement. They say that Illinois uses solitary confinement too often and for too long. In particular, they say that despite the UN defining 15 days or more of solitary confinement as torture, some Illinois inmates have seen as much as 15 years of solitary. I'm talking today to Larry Fouch, who has been a resident of the Illinois Department of Corrections for 30 years. Larry, how are you doing today?
I'm fine.
You spent 8 years at TAMS, correct?
Yes.
Tell me about your experience there.
The whole time I was there's no such thing as a telephone. You can't use a telephone. You're isolated. You go to the yard by yourself. You go to your shower by yourself. You're in the cell by yourself. You have no human contact outside of if you go on a visit, then you have two guards who walk you up there, shackled and cuffed, to walk to the visitation. And then you're bolted to the floor. There's a window between you and the visitor. And if you go to the hospital, it's the same procedure. They strip search you, shackle you, cuff you, and two guards walk you over there and walk you back. That's the extent of the human contact that you have. I remember after I'd been there probably 3 or 4 years, I went on an annual checkup one day to the nurse's station to have my 3-year physical. The nurse came in and she started talking to me, and I started getting a little anxious. And then she put her hands on me she was going to draw blood. And when she put her hands on me to draw blood, I just instantly, this anxiety came across me. It was like a panic attack started hitting me. And I got woozy and lightheaded, and I felt like I was going to pass out. And immediately I started telling them, take me back to my cell. Take me back to my cell. And the nurse said, well, if I do that, you'll have to sign a refusal. I said, I don't care. Take me back to my cell. I'm about to pass out. As soon as I got in the cell and they walked away, I felt myself kind of, the anxiety started lifting. It was calm. I was calming down a little bit. And that was the first sign that something's not right here. This is causing a mental effect on me it's unmeasurable. This is something I've never experienced before.
So you got out of TAMS in May of 2006.
Yes.
Do you still see any psychological effects?
Oh, I'll have them the rest of my life. I get extremely stressed out over minor things, and I have anxiety attacks all the time. They can medicate you for it, but it doesn't always. It may do so. It helps you, but it never controls the panic attacks. You're going to have them. I can't be around crowds of people. I can't work. There's very few jobs that I can work because I can't be around, numerous people, and it's hard for me to take orders from people. Things like that. That'll always affect me. You'd have to be in my shoes. There's a lot of that you can't really describe to somebody. It was like a nightmare you couldn't wake up from. No one has any clue to the damage that's caused by this solitary confinement. There's extreme mental damage, and no one really cares. Society's not aware of it because it's, as I had said before, you've got a fence. You've got the good guy side of the fence. You've got the bad guy side of the fence. Well, whatever the good guys say is accurate to society. They don't want to hear what the bad guys say.
Now, it's the Department of Corrections. The idea is it's supposed to be rehabilitating people and getting them ready to go back into society. Do you see any way this could possibly help?
No. It's just like when you cage up an animal and you beat an animal through the cage. Well, and then, years down the road, you open that door and you allow that animal to come out into society. Well, then what do you think his response is going to be? He's going to be a vicious animal. You just made him into a vicious animal. And that's the cycle that's going on in the Department of Corrections. There's no rehabilitation. They're not focusing on rehabilitation. And they've publicly stated years ago that that's no longer the focus. It's the Department of Corrections, just not the Department of Rehabilitation any longer. And they mean that.
One of the things I've heard from one of the inmates in this lawsuit is that sometimes
Solitary confinement will be used, or they'll send people to certain prisons as retaliation. Does it concern you at all, talking to me, that you might become a target of anything?
Oh, I could very well. I mean, that's That's a real possibility. But you know what? If I don't, who's going to? People need to speak up, and people need to, address the issue. It has to be addressed. And if it's at my expense, then, so be it.
Any final thoughts?
There's a serious problem there. There really is a serious problem there. And if it goes unchecked, it's going to be, it's going to build into a monster. And it's going to be too late. The damage is going to be done. And then everybody's going to be saying, well, why wasn't something done about this? Why weren't there changes made? Why did we allow it to get to this? Well, I think that's what this lawsuit's going to address.